This week, we are visiting the American city of San Francisco, California. San Francisco has a lot of interesting and well-known landmarks that you're probably familiar with, including the spectacular Golden Gate Bridge, the red trolley cars that carry passengers up and down the streets of the city, the island prison of Alcatraz, and the adorable sea lions that inhabit Pier 39. While the city of San Francisco holds a lot of America's interesting history, you don't have to look too far to find signs of America's future. Right outside of San Francisco is the Silicon Valley. Just south of San Francisco, you will find the land between San Jose and the city of San Francisco known as Silicon Valley. This area has been the birthplace to lots of our current technologies. Silicon Valley began when Frederick Terman, dean of Stanford Engineering School, encouraged the tradition of Stanford graduates to begin starting their own companies in the area rather than moving to other places upon graduation. It was Silicon Valley that saw the rise of companies like Hewlett-Packard, eBay, Netflix, Google, and Apple, just to name a few. There are lots of tech-related companies in the area. While lots of these are now Fortune 500 companies, the early engineers did not start out with the goal of making lots of money. They wanted to build things that had never been possible before. Silicon Valley was important during World War II when companies partnered with the U.S. military to develop radios, headsets, and radar systems. The valley's proximity to the port in San Francisco made it an ideal place to put new technology into the hands of the U.S. Navy and Air Force. It also became home to several aerospace companies and was vital in the space race with the Soviet Union. The microcomputer or personal computer, the microprocessor, and many other key technologies have been developed just outside of San Francisco. If you like technology or if you'd like to learn more, here are a few books about computers and coding that are set in San Francisco. Emmy in the Key of Code by Amy Lucido. This is a great middle reader about a girl named Emmy who moves from the Midwest to San Francisco. First, she has a hard time making friends and figuring out where she fits into her new school. But then she signs up for a coding class, taught by a woman who's retired from her life in Silicon Valley. Before she knows it, Emmy has discovered an entire new language, one that she just loves, and she's made some new friends who share her love of coding. This book is written in verse, it has lots and lots of coding references, and provided a fairly sensitive and accurate depiction of middle school life. Little Brother by Cory, Doctorow is a good book for older teens. This book is about Marcus and his group of friends who live in San Francisco. Terrorists attack the city one day, and Marcus and his group are swept up in a government raid and kept in custody for several days. When they're finally released, they go back to a city that is now overrun with government monitoring. Marcus decides that he should use his hacking abilities to get back at the government and help create a more just world. This is a thriller with a lot of action, and it also has a lot of technical detail of the tricks that Marcus and his friends use to escape government interference. You can practice coding even without a computer. For this simple Coding Without Computers experiment, we're going to use some household items. A stack of cups, they can be plastic or paper, some tape, paper, and a pencil. It also helps if you have a friend. The first step is to lay out a grid like this with your tape. Now, I have some of the tape set 1 cup width apart, but I've divided each of those cup widths in half. So we have spaces, when I count, each of the spaces between the tape is 1 space. So if I move the cup 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spaces, that's where the cup will stay. My goal is to stack the cups and to be able to describe to somebody else how to stack them in the same way without using any words. So I'm going to use a different language instead of words. I'm making arrows as symbols. So if I draw an arrow pointing to the right, that means to move the cup to the right 1 space. And if I draw an arrow pointing straight up, that means I'm going to be stacking my cup on top of another cup rather than setting it on the table. And if I draw a curving arrow like this, it means I want the person to flip the cup over before they stack it or set it on the table, like this. I also will need a symbol to tell them when to pick up a new cup. I use 2 lines, which means start with a new cup. So I can draw a message with 3 arrows, and that means move my cup 3 spaces. See if you can write a code that will instruct somebody else how to stack the cups in your desired pattern. What would this structure look like? If you like coding, maybe someday you'll find yourself in Silicon Valley.